We're live.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. We're here in this Facebook Live session to discuss the CLEAR project, which is a student group at Coastal Carolina University that provides intelligence support to law enforcement agencies in the region. I'm Dr. Jonathan Smith. I'm joined today by two leaders within the group. Uh, First is Miss Crystal Marzetti. She is from Baltimore. She just recently graduated with the intelligence major and a minor in criminology. And in addition to serving in CLEAR, she had served in a variety of other organizations, including the Chanticleer Intelligence Brief, Women in Intelligence and National Security, and also 4 semesters of club soccer. I'm also joined by Ms. Hannah Crumpton. She's actually the leader of our exercise support team, and she is from Greenville, South Carolina, and she's an intelligence major, still currently working in the program, but she also is working on minors in psychology and Spanish. As for me, I've been a faculty member here at Coastal since 2011. I was the first faculty member here, and so I'm the one who established the intelligence program. My doctoral degree is in national security decision making, but perhaps more relevant is I served as a career Navy intelligence officer serving 23 years in the service. Now, today what we're going to be doing is talking about the overall mission and origins of CLEAR, as well as some of the current projects that it is working on. So I'm going to start by giving a little bit of background in terms of where CLEAR came from. As an organization, it began in 2017, and it began with kind of the idea that our students in the intelligence program had something that could potentially be of value to security practitioners who might not otherwise have an intelligence function. So a proverbial win-win, if you will, that we have students who, as one of the objectives of the program, is to learn how to become better intelligence analysts, to learn those basic knowledge and skill sets. But oftentimes beyond, a hypothetical scenario or something like that, they don't have a real world issue to latch onto. Whereas there are a number of security organizations that are increasingly trying to take advantage of intelligence processes to improve their decision making, but that many times they might not have the resources. So for instance, in the United States, there are something just under 18,000 law enforcement organizations, but many of those organizations are reasonably small, and as a result, may not have the funding or the staffing to have an intelligence function, or if they have one, it is largely under-resourced. So the idea that we might be able to have a cooperative relationship that benefits both parties was really where this idea of CLEAR came out of. And so there were 5 students who in 2017 got together with me with this idea of how we might create such an organization. Now, the first topic that we worked on was essentially a demonstration project. That is, one of the things that we have found is in order to establish a relationship, there is a degree of maturation that has to happen. You essentially have to develop the relationship, is what I'm trying to say. And so we needed to be able to demonstrate what we would be able to do. Now, without having actually had an active client, what we decided to do was to conduct a Freedom of Information Act request in order to get some data in order to create an analytic project. And so we went to one of the local counties and got 3 years worth of calls for service data through a Freedom of Information Act request. And utilizing statistical analysis and geospatial analysis, particularly mapping, we were able to study robberies in the area. And we put together an intelligence product that utilized this analysis and was actually fairly interesting because what we found was somewhat counterintuitive, that while you would expect in a tourist area, you would see more crime in the tourist months in the summer season. What we found actually was that the rate that it was inverted, that the spike in robberies actually occurred in the off-season months. So again, being able to provide that sort of analysis to local law enforcement is something which could potentially benefit them. The idea of intelligence-led policing has been something that has been growing in the United States for the past 20 years or so. And the idea behind intelligence-led policing is this idea that law enforcement officials could utilize intelligence support to guide them in terms of directing resources to try to get ahead of issues of crime in their area. But if you don't know where or when it's occurring, that's hard to do. And so intelligence support can provide a valuable role to law enforcement organizations. And so with that first product done, we were able to reach out and establish relationships with some organizations in the area, including Myrtle Beach Police Department, who we've got a fantastic working relationship with. And we have only grown from there. We have several projects that are currently ongoing. And that is where I wanted to get to my two fellow guests here today. Again, I'll start with Crystal. Crystal has served as the team leader for the auto larceny team. And so I wanted to have her discuss her group's work. But before we get to that, Crystal, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about kind of what brought you to the program?
Yeah, so I actually didn't find out until later that Eric actually he told me he recommended me to you, and then he sent out an interest email email talking about the interest meeting, and I was interested in it because, as you'd mentioned earlier, I was involved in other organizations within the major, which I did enjoy, but I wanted something more hands-on and more realistic experience, and I know that I'm interested in pursuing a possible career in federal law enforcement, so I know joining a club or an organization that was actively participating with a local law enforcement, that would help me kind of take one step further into getting potentially a career in the federal law enforcement. And also when I actually met with the Myrtle Beach FBI office members, I talked to them about this club when I first heard about it, and they were really ecstatic and they were really interested in it. And they said definitely put that on my resume and definitely participate, because that'll definitely spark a lot of positive questions from future employers, because it's not like a lot of students have that interaction with real data and real information, rather than just examples or just doing stuff in class. And it's definitely an experience outside the classroom that I wanted to have. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point about getting that experience, because again, many college students who graduate, particularly in our field, not having a lot of experience can be a real challenge when you reach the market. However, one of the things that not just the CLEAR group, which of course CLEAR stands for Coastal Law Enforcement Analysis and Research Project, but Chanticleer Intelligence Brief, and other such organizations allow our students the opportunity to develop these real world skill sets. And again, beyond the idea that it's useful for the real world after you get out, I think it also does a really very valuable job for the students in terms of the application in a real world context gives them a heightened level of understanding. There's an old saying I'm very fond of, that the person who grabs the tiger by the tail learns 33% faster than the person who is merely watching. And that's very much what you see with our group. For instance, it was last year in the spring when we did one of our first briefings with Myrtle Beach Police Department, and we had a collection of students who were briefing material. And it's a very different environment to brief a faculty member in a class as opposed to briefing the police chief on an issue that they have a real world interest in. And I think the experience and the insights were very useful to those students. And again, I think that kind of lesson applies more broadly in our program. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about kind of the day-to-day in terms of what you and your group were working on and how you went about it.
Yeah, so we had data from 2017 to 2019 on the different reports, on all the reports of auto larceny in Myrtle Beach. So we broke it down and took all data and broke it down to days of the week, which day of the week tended to have the most reported break-ins, what month of the year, and then we broke it into time of the day. We did shift times, because the Myrtle Beach Police Department patrol shift times are from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that can help us help us look at, okay, which time of day are they getting the most calls so they could possibly have more patrol officers on those shift hours. And we also did like locations, so which districts of Myrtle Beach were hit more. We also worked with the GIS team. In order we sent them our data, and they were able to create a heat map, which allowed us to look at the hotspots on a map of the whole of Myrtle Beach and just visually see what spots are kind of hit the most with auto larceny reports. We also had someone in our group look at firearms and how firearms being stolen was compared to the rest of the items being stolen, and where those reports were concentrated in and when as well. We also looked at the nationwide trends. We had another member of our group look at the nationwide. We used the FBI UCR data and compared all the larceny to Myrtle Beach to the rest of the United States to kind of see if we're in trend with them as well. So that's really what we did. And we didn't get to finish our project completely by like giving full recommendations like we planned on, but I tried to with the final report to leave a couple recommendations for them based on the data that we did have. So
Yeah, well, again, I don't think you should undersell what your group did, because what you did was again pretty much the full realm of what an intelligence analysis product would be, right? You had key judgments, you went through the analysis, and again, as you were noting, your group was doing not just kind of pattern and trend analysis by looking at the data, going through. How many cases did you have in across the 3 years of your work?
it probably had to be. I mean, it was average about like 1,000 or less, or several hundred. So I would say about 2 to 3,000 cases probably total at the
Yeah,
most.
so you
It
have a
was a
large number of cases that you're trying to make sense of in terms of, what are the variations that make sense.
Mhm.
And then in addition to that, as you mentioned, you were collaborating with our GIS team. So we had a group of students who were working on ArcGIS to do mapping for the group. And so they would do these point density or heat maps that will allow us to do data visualization to see where the concentrations were and to see if those concentrations varied over time. And so the interplay, I think, of those two types of analytic methods goes quite a long way. And again, I understand what you're saying. Obviously the challenge with the quarantine uh, minimized the ability for your group to wrap up your project in the second half of the semester. But that said, you continued on. How did you finish up?
Well, I took a lot of time, especially once I was finished with classes, in May. I was able to have a lot more time to work on it, and I took a lot of, my group members didn't, we weren't all able to get together, so it was a little bit more difficult for them. So I kind of took it upon myself to finish it because I don't like leaving things unfinished, and I wanted to, we worked really hard to get all of this information, this analysis all year. I didn't want it to just go to waste, so I finished the finalized report and brought it all together. And I also used, just as a reference of the report last year that they sent to the Myrtle Beach Police for like their different project to kind of have them as like a base, okay, how I should set it up and everything like that. And so, yeah, I really took it upon myself to kind of finish it and make sure we could send it to them. We could send them something at least to show that we
Yeah,
really work all year. So,
well, and again, I think what you've produced is very useful for them. But back before the quarantine, how would you describe the experience in kind of normal operations in terms of how your group worked together?
um, just like our dynamic, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you met for a period of time during the week,
Mhm.
but obviously that wasn't enough time to really do all that you intended to over a given week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely needed to work on it outside of the group meetings, which was difficult to get everyone to do that. At first, it was definitely difficult to get everyone to get together, and everyone be there for every single Wednesday because it was very crucial for us to be there. I was always the last person to leave most of the time to make sure we got everything finished when we did. And we definitely had a lot of setbacks, a lot of data issues that we came across, and people just had stuff come up, so they weren't able to put in the work, which is understandable. But I mean, other than that, I think we did work really well together. Eric was really our main person helping us learn about Excel because I did not know really how to use Excel very much before this club. So that was a good positive I had come out from this too. I really learned how to go around Excel a lot easier and more efficiently. But I think overall group dynamic was really well once we kind of were on track before the quarantine. So we all worked pretty
Yeah.
well.
Well, I mean, again, I think you raised a good point right there with regard to, um, in addition to the coordination both in and outside of the meetings, there is kind of some learning as you go, not just about the analytic work, but maybe even the systems that you need, that you kind of develop these skills on the fly. And that's one of the things actually I kind of enjoy, and I think is also another benefit to students in our program with regard to what CLEAR does, is that beyond the idea that you're doing real world analysis, and so it has real world implications. So with those stakes, you tend to push a little harder. There's also the idea that in those weekly meetings, it's got the kind of the look and feel, if not exactly, but fairly close to what a real world intelligence production environment is like. You've got, a large area, you've got different groups working on different projects. There's interplay. There is kind of on the job training as you go. So beyond the value in sharpening your skill set, I think also there's a little bit of learning what it's like to be in an intelligence organization that at least in my own experience, in my own career in the intelligence community, that this gives some students some insight about what that lifestyle might look like.
Yeah.
Now,
For sure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
For sure. I remember me and Hannah actually were like talking about like, things we use, a lot of things we learned in class, actually. I remember our operations class that we had with you. I remember like I forgot exactly what it was. But we were kind of trailing along like what we were learning in that class and then applying it to like a real world situation. And also it was my first time holding a leadership position. So it was definitely a learning experience that way to like learn how to be a leader and how to be and, have everybody on track. So that was definitely something that I was learning on the way too. I'm not usually one to, I don't like telling people what to do. Okay, like, come on, like, we gotta get going. So it was definitely like something that was a challenge that I had to learn as I went. So.
Well, and to be sure, there are different styles of leadership, but clearly you did a good job of managing your team and moving towards a common objective. And particularly with a group of volunteers, that can be kind of a hit or miss proposition. Some people are more committed than others, and you have to be able to assess the people you're working with to figure out who you can count on and who you cannot. So it's good that you got this additional experience, because of course that is also an important skill set as you become a leader in the intelligence field going forward.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Now, did you get an opportunity to do any of the additional activities with the police department that they offered us?
Yeah, no, I didn't ever get to do a ride along. It was just a lot going on with like work and capstone. I was just really focusing on that before the quarantine. I think I kept pushing it off, and then by the time I finally was like going to be able to, we shut down our campus. So, but I was something I would do in the future if I'm still able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we had several students.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I could still do it as like not a student. I guess I would just be like a regular civilian.
Yeah, no, I think you can do it, particularly since they have your security information from before. That shouldn't be an issue. We can certainly arrange that. But a number of students, and myself included, did ride along, so we got a chance to kind of get the on the ground perspective of what law enforcement officers are facing at an operational, which again I think is not just beneficial in its own right, but also in terms of our analysis, in terms of having a sense of what they care about, how they see the situation, right? If intelligence is about helping decision makers to make better decisions, you have to kind of understand how they're approaching the situation, how they perceive the environment that they're in. But again, ride-alongs, we've done, you were there when we did the tour of Myrtle Beach Police Department, where we to kind of tour their operations, meet with their intelligence officer, and essentially, get some additional insights to operations and how law enforcement and the intelligence world could connect. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that's fairly valuable. And again, a sign, I think, of kind of where this relationship goes beyond not just the analytic product and the relationship there, but in terms of other opportunities. I mean, we actually have had students who have been in this program who by this affiliation has led to other opportunities, internships, job applications, things of that nature. So it has deeper benefits than just the exchange of we're doing analysis for something that you need. It actually leads to other opportunities. Mm-hmm. It actually is a nice segue into Hannah's work, because the work that Hannah is working on, in a way, moves us beyond traditional analytic work, but into an area that's still really important to the security world, because what she's dealing with is the role of exercise support. And any organization engaged in security, maybe organizations broadly, I mean, again, any organization does a fire drill, right? They have to exercise core functions to make sure that they're doing them correctly, or if they don't do them correctly, they can identify problems before it's a real world situation. And so the ability to develop and execute exercises is a critical component of any organization involved in the security field. And it involves a lot of intelligence analysis, actually. So, Hannah, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to the organization and a little bit about what your group is currently doing?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Smith. So I actually didn't know very much about CLEAR until I started getting emails from you, actually. I was like, this is kind of interesting. So I did some research and poking around the other students in the Intel major. And I was currently, and still, of course, I'm part of the Chanticleer Intelligence Brief. So I started asking some of the former execs if they knew anything. And all of them quickly like, go do it. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be something you really need to do. So I went to the first meeting and immediately was like, this is amazing. This is amazing work that I want to participate in. And we gathered a great team working for the exercise group, and now have kind of focused onto multiple different red teaming events. And unfortunately, we did lose a couple of our team members due to the transition with COVID-19, but we're making it work with only a few members and slowly bringing in some new members, hopefully for some new work that we continue to do.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, because I think this is an interesting piece, perhaps a degree of resilience for our own organization, but the exercise project continues on. How have you been able to keep this going, even though with quarantine, we basically all got separated?
Well, because of quarantine, we didn't know that anything was going to continue. We're like, okay, we're finished classes and we'll move on. But we all kept in contact, and we all kept trying to complete certifications with FEMA. And then you reached out saying Myrtle Beach was still willing to work with us. And that was game on. We were ready. We all got together. We figured out who was able to continue on depending on workloads with work, who unfortunately lost jobs, who needed to pick up jobs to get money. And we just continued on. And for the past couple of months, every Tuesday at 2 a.m., we're on a meeting, we're moving forward with how we are working on different events and just really supporting each other for the upcoming.
Yeah, explain to me a little bit about what you're doing for the Myrtle Beach Police Department in terms of this exercise. What exactly are you doing for them with regard to this?
Well, right now we are focusing on the red teaming kind of you take an event and you think of all the things that can go wrong with it. It can be something as simple as everyone shopping, or some big event of a mass group of people together. And you basically challenge Myrtle Beach and the fire department, or just any public official, what is your plan? And then they respond, and then you shoot them down with another thing. Okay, but what if this happens? And you basically test to see if they are actually ready for something catastrophic happening, whether it be in a major situation or a minor situation. Right now, we are currently in development for different scenarios, different locations to run a variety of different forms of this exercise.
Yeah, so I mean, again, now you were talking about the additional training. What else has Myrtle Beach been asking you to do with regard to learning this skill set?
Well, when we were back at Coastal, Myrtle Beach actually reached out to us and gave us a list of different FEMA trainings that we could do. So we actually became certified in these management of these exercises. So when we did actually participate in a security exercise, we were there, we were qualified, and we knew what we were talking about. It kind of just gave us an extra credibility to being a part of these exercises. So that was a great help, and it actually helped us understand on our own, like our own front of us just doing research and figuring out how we want to handle this. It gave us a better way to understand what people were looking for and how we can better approach and help Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. Again, I think it's kind of interesting that, this opportunity has led to additional skill sets, things that you could even include on a resume, courses that you've completed through FEMA and whatnot. And the idea that you're in the process of essentially creating the scenario and the injects, the measles list in order to help guide the evolution of the exercise. But when these exercises actually come to taking place, there may be other opportunities in terms of actually participating. If it's a full-blown field exercise,
Absolutely.
then you might actually be participating either as a part of the exercise or as one of the evaluators, what's sometimes referred to as the white cell. So again, and I think it's another one of these interesting ways in which the analytic work we do essentially brings new opportunities that maybe weren't foreseen at the beginning. That's actually one of the things I'm very fond about saying about our project, about our program writ large. When I came here in 2011, I had some ideas about what was going to happen, but with the new faculty members came new ideas, and the program has grown and expanded in ways that perhaps I would not even have imagined. And what we see in CLEAR is kind of a microcosm of that you get people who are intelligent and motivated together working on a project, and it seems to break loose additional opportunities, which I think is, again, unforeseen, but unforeseen in a very nice way. Right, so what Hannah and Crystal bring together is essentially two elements of what we do within this program, but these are not the only areas that we've been working. We've been working on several other topics as well. So this is just an exemplar of a couple of areas we've been working on. And the future actually for our program and CLEAR as an organization, I think it's very good going forward. Obviously, current circumstances with COVID-19 notwithstanding, though I think even there we've shown how we can adapt and overcome. We have more opportunities that are developing, more relationships with new organizations. So both in terms of breadth and depth, I think the reputation of your predecessors and what you have served for future members of CLEAR has essentially kind of laid the groundwork for new opportunities. And we are expected in this next academic year to get an intelligence lab. So we will actually have a dedicated space for intelligence analysis. And this may be some for classes, but certainly our organization will be able to utilize this as well. And this will include not just a fixed location where, again, the things I've found kind of funny is that as we've had to borrow classroom space up to now, any maps or stuff that we've had to bring, I have to kind of bring along and put up and then take down, right? It will be nice to be able to put them up and leave them up. But we all have additional databases and software packages, both in terms of statistical analysis, geospatial. We have the ability to do social network analysis. So we have Analyst Notebook, it's a software package we can utilize there. So I think that intelligence lab is only going to allow us to improve and increase our opportunities going forward. Again, at base, it's got to start with the students and the things that they provide, their initiative, their motivation, the expertise that they're looking to sharpen. But the university, I think, is doing an admirable job of providing the scaffolding, the structure and resources to essentially make a good thing great, as I would see it. So, ladies, is there anything else that you think is worth noting about our club?
It's a fantastic opportunity. So if you get a chance to do it, definitely do it. And in this major, you learn all the skills that you need to do, and CLEAR gives you a chance to actually put hands-on work and develop those skills. So I mean, I want to appreciate Dr. J just a little bit for teaching me, the structures of analysis. But now, thank you, Dr. Smith, for giving me the opportunity to put hands-on and actually get a chance to learn a little bit more and find stuff that I'm really passionate about. So thank you.
Yeah. Most welcome.
Yeah, I was gonna say nearly the same thing. She kind of took my words out of my mouth. So, but definitely, I mean, I would tell anybody to do it in Intel, even if you don't want to pursue law enforcement in the future, if that's not even close to your track. I mean, it's still just a good way because I don't know any other club in the major that you work with real data and real, real problems that you have to like face really, instead of just for a grade or just hypothetically. I mean, it's not hypothetical; it's real data. It's a real adolescence is a real issue, like a real thing in Myrtle Beach, and plenty of people I've talked to are like, "Oh yeah, I've been a victim of it. Like someone's broken into my car." So it's like just like a more realistic thing, and I definitely recommend anybody within the major to definitely do it. I want to thank you, Dr. Smith, yeah, for inviting
Well,
us to this team. So
yeah, again, I'm grateful to have you two and the others participating in the program because again, I think that make this a lot more worthwhile. I see we got a question from one Joseph Fitzanakis. So
I know that name.
Dr. J has a question. Are you able to see it in the chat?
Yes, we can see the
oh,
question.
okay, wait.
I can respond first. Hi, Dr. J. I knew you'd be watching, but this project, this project definitely, I think, helped me focus a little bit more on what I wanted to do. But I do know that I don't particularly want to go into local law enforcement. But this helped me develop more appreciation for what they do. And I found a lot of interest in actually managing exercise groups and being a part of that and really testing these skills to see if they're ready for something that's really catastrophic. So I really think that's something I'm really interested in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I definitely, I never thought about doing local law enforcement, but this has definitely been a good opportunity. Yeah, like you said, to see and gain respect for what they do and how much work really like kind of goes into it. And but I know I never thought I'd want to have an analytical job. I always wanted to work in the field, but I mean, I definitely did like what I did here, and I wouldn't mind doing it as like as a job. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I think there are two things at play here. On the one hand, the specifics of local law enforcement may or may not be your cup of tea. But as we've said, one of the most important things you can do in intelligence is to know who your client is, know who you're supporting. And so being able to use the skill sets of trying to understand your client and the way they see the world and what their needs are, I think is important. And I think also then there's a second piece of, intelligence processes. That is, how do you do analysis? How do you brief? And again, whether we're talking about briefing the president or briefing the chief, you're going to find that it's a skill set, regardless of where you apply it. So again, I think what you two said in terms of this idea that local law enforcement may or may not be where you were looking to end up, but what we do in the organization, I think, is still valuable. I think that's useful, and I think important to keep in mind that there are a lot of skill sets that you're developing. The subject material that you've got here with local law enforcement is one piece of that, but the skill sets that you're developing with regard to analysis and briefing and project management, I think is really important skill sets going forward.
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, well, I think we'll stop there. I think at the end of the day, I'm very grateful to say that I think the future of CLEAR is very bright. If I can mix metaphors there. I thank everybody for joining us today. Hannah and Crystal, thank you very much for participating. Your work in the program has been very helpful, and your help today has also been very much appreciated.
Thank you, Dr.
Have a good day as well.